So it's been a while since I've made a Speedmaster video, and an even longer time since I have shared my personal preferences and my favorites of the Speedmaster range. And I thought, hey, this might be a great time to not only chat about these models and the reasons why I appreciate their designs, but it could also be good fun because there are a few hidden gems in here that you might not have heard about, some of which have the best designs, in my humble opinion. What I've done for this video is choose roughly 12 watches, many of which are modern enough that we know them pretty well. Omega, with all of their limited editions, it was a hard job to do. But why I do enjoy making these sorts of videos so much is you can very clearly see personal preferences from a mile away. If you are new to this channel, you might not know this about me, but I am not a Speedmaster fan. It's never a watch that has truly appealed to me. I never grew up in that period where the space race was going on. I never saw these watches reach the heights that they did. But what this collection has done, continues to do, and why it has been Omega's greatest success, is the fact that it has managed to pull in enthusiasts regardless of their watch preferences. You know, the Speedmaster represents the community's chronograph, and that's what makes it so incredibly special. You might be someone who has never enjoyed or even looked at a chronograph properly before, but that raw utilitarian design of this watch, the iconic status, and what it has been used for in the past, that intersection of a high quality movement, extremely legible dial. There is a value for money portion that makes these watches great. In so many ways it is a full package, and that's partly the reason why it has been able to transcend time as we know it. Now, you and I both know that Omega catches a lot of flack for producing hundreds of millions of Speedmasters. But when you distill it down to the very basics, when you distill it down to 10 or so watches, you can really see the ones that stand out, and that's what I wanted to make this video for. Now, before starting the rankings, I couldn't get the ball rolling without including the 3861 and the 1861 Speedmaster. If you want to save yourself the headache, go after one of these watches and call it a day. They do everything that we as a community like about the Speedmaster. Ideal for strap changes, the one and done, a perfect one watch. This could be the model that you wear for the rest of your life, and that's all you need. This video, on the other hand, is more of a daydreaming exercise. If rarity wasn't a thing, if money wasn't an option, these are the 10 I would go after. Number 12 on the list, the Dark Side of the Moon Speedmaster. From its ceramic case, slightly larger sized, skeletonized components on its dial. There's so many things to enjoy about this watch. My personal preference especially is the use of black and contrasting yellow. I think what I do enjoy most is that there is a level of complexity to this watch that we don't see with virtually any other Speedmaster. Omega doesn't often skeletonize their watches, and I believe the Speedmaster collection could do with a lot of these changes, especially when we look to a brand like Tag Heuer, what they have been able to achieve with a model like the Monaco. There is such a good sense of modernity, complexity. You see subtle callbacks to 1970s parts, and even textures used on the dial. The best word that you could use to describe the Dark Side of the Moon Speedmaster is organic, and I like it. Also the fact that virtually everything on this watch, tachymeter included, glows in the dark. It's a nice novelty. Watch number 11 is the Snoopy II Speedmaster. Everyone raves about the Snoopy III, the uses of blue, the silver dial. No complaints there, it's a fantastic looking watch. But I believe that the Snoopy II, it captures the essence of what this watch represents a lot better. The simple monotone colors, there is a comic strip feel to how it's been done. The caricature of Snoopy lying down is a bit more iconic, the subtle inscription for 14 seconds on the dial, and this reverse monochromatic aesthetic has become very popular, especially with the new 3861 white dial. And this watch was the original piece to start it all. A great unified design. Number 10 is the Ultraman, and the origin story of this watch is quite incredible. The simple process of adding an orange accented seconds hand on the chronograph. And it's now the most sought after and collected Speedmaster in the world. Now, the reissue did so many things well. It's the details, it's the attention to detail that makes all the difference. The classic applied logo. How these orange accents were used across the dial. How a black line runs through the middle of the chronograph seconds. How the Ultraman character is invisible unless you shine it with a black light. In a similar way to how the Snoopy II is such a unified design, the Ultraman represents the very best the same way. Now, another model that has always appealed to me, similar sort of vein as the Ultraman, is the Japan Racing Edition. This watch is now 20 years old, but again, the use of orange accents, the racing dial, there is something so charming and appealing about this piece. And it's also right there next to the Ultraman. Similar appeal, very different. Now, in 9th place, it's everyone's favorite. It's the Ed White Speedmaster. This piece did so many things right when it came out. To this day, it's still one of the best Speedmasters the brand has ever made. In their modern collection, we could see it as quite a step up from the typical watches that they do produce. But also, thanks to the caliber, it's twice the cost. You've got to ask yourself with a model like this if the juice is worth the squeeze. Is it worth paying, what, 2.5 times more than the standard 3861 Speedmaster to go after the 321? And the reason why this watch is not higher up in my list is because this is seen as the transitional between the professional Speedmaster and the earlier generations. Now, where I do love the case and the ceramic bezel insert, I'm just not a fan of the professional handset, but we'll get into that in a moment. Who am I kidding? It's an incredible watch, one that I think we all wish we could own. But you see, my enthusiasm around the Speedmaster focuses more on the unconventional side of the family, which is why the Flight Qualified is number 8. This piece debuting last year as a callback to the Flightmaster, but for me it's the typical 70s look to this dial. It's the callback to certain Lemanias around that time. The use of orange and yellow we've already seen over the course of the video, the polished insert around the minute track, it's the legibility. And I guess the only real drawback to this watch is its diameter is a little bit bigger, it's a bit thicker because it's an automatic coaxial movement. But the design screams tool watch, it screams function, and it's very unconventional. That's why I like it. 7 on my list is a bittersweet one, the CK2915 Trilogy. This watch back in the day was relatively affordable. Being an owner of the Trilogy Seamaster, things could have changed. I might have been the owner of the Trilogy Speedmaster instead. One reason or another, it never happened, and these watches have become very collectible. You'll see that this is now the start of my broad arrow fixation, the alpha hands. Small touches like a tropic dial on this watch. The steel bezel, love it or hate it, but it's what gave it its charm. I don't know whether or not I adore the CK2915 because it's the original, or because it was just so against the norm of what we see now. Adding to it, I also see it as a watch that represents the 1950s so clearly, which was one of my favorite time periods for watch design. Now, following closely behind the 2915 is the 2998, the first Omega in space, number 6 on my list. This, in my humble opinion, is the epitome of classic Speedmaster design. Much like the Ed White, but before the transitional hands were put on the dial. It must be well over 6 months by now since the second generation arrived, but this piece really was a home run. Stepping to the dial, the mixture of alpha hands, the Soleil blue, the period correct applied logo, and that domed sapphire crystal that looks just like Hesalite. I'm still a very big fan of this watch, and it's one of my favorites. Number 5 on the list, we're starting to get a bit more experimental, the Alaska Project. This is one of the most peculiar Speedmasters ever made, arguably even more sought after and collectible next to the Ultraman, designed as the next generation prototype to be worn over spacesuits that unfortunately the astronauts never got to experience because NASA was on a tight budget. We've already covered the Snoopy Speedmaster and the 3861 white dial. This watch with a reverse white dial was very much the first. And its most iconic details, the hour and minute hand, but those Apollo rockets for the chronograph seconds. Now the contrast of white and red, you can see I'm a fan. This is almost an homage to that, I think. So much to like about it, the stripped down nature to this prototype dial. The greatest detail to note is the anodized aluminium cage that this watch also was supplied with. Sadly, it's a watch that most of us will never get our hands on, but nevertheless, it's a favorite and deserves to be up here. Now, 4th on my list is a watch that doesn't get a lot of fanfare. This watch arrived and disappeared very soon after, but it's the Hodinkee 10th Anniversary Mark 40 Tribute Speedmaster. It's quite a mouthful. It is a Frankenstein watch in the purest form, using elements of the CK2998 case, parts of the Mark 40 dial, but the cleanliness of the Arabics used around the dial, the contrasting colors and how they all work together. It's a combination of watches like the Alaska Project, like the Flight Qualified, and the Mark 40. But also has ties to an older design using a more classic case. On one hand, it doesn't seem period correct, it looks like a fan tribute, especially because of the mixing and matching of all of these parts. On the other hand, it works. Somehow, I don't know how, it works. I'm not someone who really appreciates precious metals and watches. I never really grew up around them. I never really aspired to own a precious metal watch. But when I saw the Moonshine Gold and Emerald Green Speedmaster, I thought, well, this is something to look at. I think what draws me to this watch so much is that choice of green used on the dial. There is also something quite charming about seeing how this gold would age, how this bracelet seems quite appropriate. Now maybe this is too much of a John Mayer Daytona tribute, but there is something about it. Now the final 2 watches, they're very much my lottery watches. Not the Apollo 11 gold model that everyone talks about with the burgundy accents. It's the Canopus Gold 321 CK2915. When this watch arrived, I was blown away. Featuring an onyx dial, applied indices, and all of the small details that I have already praised about the CK2915. One of the only downsides about this watch is the caseback has a sapphire inlaid in the sapphire, which is on a laser-etched print of a seahorse which is covering the 3-2-1 movement. The first thing I would do if I got this watch would be to remove all of that and to just put a clear case back on this watch. I mean, what are they doing? But for me, the lover of the unconventional watches in this family, this is my aspiration Speedmaster 100%, because it does so much while saying so little. And that branches very casually over to the final watch in this category, the Grail for many. Subtle, sophisticated, doesn't shout about what it is, what it does. It's the Platinum 321 Meteorite dial, a watch that has just recently been given a full, flat-link platinum bracelet to go with it. Omega has experimented with Meteorite on their watches before, like the Apollo Soyuz 35th anniversary watch. But there is something so incredibly special about how this watch addresses everything. There is a finality to its design. It doesn't need flashy colors, accents, or anything to allow it to stand out. The best sort of watches out there are the ones that, if you know, you know. And between the 321-2915 and the 321 Meteorite, both of these watches do the same thing. Just exceeding expectations, harmonious, they use the materials well, but to the layman, they just look like any other watch. So this video has gone full circle. In the beginning, I didn't include the 3861 or the 1861, the standard watches, because they appear too generic. But the video ends with two watches that could be seen as the same. The only thing that separates them is, well, the movements, the case and bracelet material, and the small touches of using stones and other worldly minerals too. You might also notice that I haven't included many of the 25th anniversary or 37th anniversary watches. There are tons of them, and we would be here all day if that was the case. I guess the Apollo 11 50th anniversary with the two-tone gold and grey is a nice one that appeals to me. But you can see that my taste with these watches, it's sort of all over the place, but what can you do? If you were given the choice to choose one of these watches, money no object, rarity not a thing, would you go for the 3861, the Ed White 321, or the Platinum Meteorite 321? I mean, come on. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. See you in the next one.